As teachers, we really need to think about how we can incorporate social media into our sex ed teaching. First of all, in planning for this, we really need to stop and breathe. It can feel really overwhelming when trying to think about how we're actually going to do this. The second thing we need to think about is risk. So often when we're thinking about social media, we immediately go to thinking about risk. We might make the link that risk will definitely mean harm, or that all young people in our classroom experience risk in the same ways, even though we know that risk impacts young people's lives differently depending on their gender, age, ability, where they're living, their family situation and so on. The other thing is that young people really don't like talking about risk. For them, they haven't heard of all of their best friends ending up on BuzzFeed because of some video that they've posted. So it seems unrealistic for us to start thinking about teaching social media as a source of risk, when really for them it might be a source of pleasure, confusion, excitement, ambivalence. And I guess that's where we really need to start thinking about how we're going to teach young people and talk to them about social media in ways that actually make sense for them. If I'm planning my teaching, I might use research from media studies, cultural studies and sociology to inform the way I'm thinking about social media. So when I'm planning, I use 3 different concepts. The first one is affordances. When we think about affordances of social media, we're talking about what social media allows us to do. So if you're talking about a phone allows you to call someone, to text someone, to take a photo, to send a photo. If you're talking about an app, it might be to be able to send a photo that only certain people see, or a photo that lots of people see. So affordances are a really interesting way to talk about social media with young people, because it asks them to say, what does that app or platform or device or whatever it happens to be allow you to actually do? The second concept or idea that I use is this idea of polymedia. This one's really easy to understand. Asking young people about their choices and the options that are available to them is really important. Why did they use this app or this program or this platform instead of another one? What does that platform afford for them? For some young people, it could be that they're using multiple things all at once. They could be watching TV, tweeting about TV, while texting a friend, while also playing music on Spotify, and that's linking up to all of their friends' pages as well. So this might seem a little bit disconnected from sex education, but the same sorts of questions apply when we're thinking about how young people might negotiate relationships or flirt using social media, or the kinds of images that they might send. They may not be sexual images, but they may be ways of saying, hey, I care about you, here's a selfie, to their partner or potential partner. It could also be the sorts of images that they put out there after a breakup, or the song lyrics that they post on Facebook so that their friends know that they're having a really terrible time. The third and last concept that I use in planning for my teaching is to think about the online and offline as part of one world. You don't have just your Facebook friends and then your real life friends. Some of them cross over. For young people, what they feel online, whether it be somebody saying something to them that's flirting or someone putting them down, makes them feel the same way as if someone said that to them face-to-face in a physical context as well. So when we divide the online and offline, we're not actually seeing that young people experience the world as one thing. Talking to young people about this, it's really important not to dismiss what happens on social media. This is especially crucially important for sex ed teachers who might be talking to young people about sexual violence, sexual harassment, or other issues. What happens online is just as devastating or distressing as what might happen face-to-face. So we need to think about responding to these issues in the same way. So listening to young people, not judging them, making sure they feel safe and that they can actually maintain their safety if something's happened to them. Helping their friends to become really good advocates so that they can go out into the community and not feel that everybody's against them because of one thing that's happened to them. As sex educators, often what we're doing is talking to young people about how they communicate with people, whether they're falling in love, their prospective partners, or someone who is a partner, and how they negotiate and manage those sorts of relationships. Often we've used things like role plays where young people are practicing these techniques, or they're giving advice to somebody else, to one of their friends. One of the really cool things about social media is that you can take screenshots of conversations. So for some young people, Texting with a prospective partner actually gives them time to take a breath, to stop, think about how they're going to reply. For some young people, they might share what somebody sent to them with their friends, and their friends can tell, this is how I'd reply, or actually that doesn't sound too good, are you sure about that? So asking young people to think slowly about social media and actually practice, how would you put that into text? And what happens when the other person interprets it in a different way? What do you do then? How can your friends help out? If something does become inappropriate, how can you report that information? So it's not saying that anything done via social media is inappropriate, but there are positives and negatives to both sides of the story. We're really lucky as teachers because we have the opportunity to help young people develop their help-seeking behaviours. Often this has been about helping them find out how to get a Medicare card and go to the GP, or where sexual health clinics are in their local area, or speaking with a nurse. Social media can be overwhelming because there are more options and more places where young people can go for information, but at the same time there is perhaps less quality control or information that may not be useful for them in that particular moment. Asking young people to talk about where they get information from, bring examples into the classroom where appropriate. So taking screenshots of a friend's status that might be about, oh, I went and did this, or here's a really funny website that's got information about STI, for example, but also has little comics or other things on there too. And asking young people to assess that information. What information helps them feel like they're not alone? What information actually helps them take the next step into maybe getting an STI test done, or talking to someone about whether or not a relationship's right for them? Which information do they read but then skim through? What is it about that information that doesn't make them want to engage with it? Those kind of stories and conversations are great for students to start thinking about where they go in certain times when things are troubling for them, but then also where they can go just to feel like, okay, everybody else is in the same boat as me. This stuff is really difficult and challenging. The question that often comes up for sex ed teachers is, what do we do about sexting? The first thing to talk about with your students is, what actually is sexting for them? What are their definitions of it? Does it involve images? Is it just text? Is it on apps? Does it also involve the sorts of conversations about images or text that may happen face to face? Asking young people to define this, and also to compare definitions, whether they be ones in different sorts of laws, definitions that their parents might have, and ask them to start unpacking what those different things mean. When we're talking about images in particular, for some young people, the sorts of images that adults might see as being sexually explicit or inappropriate, for young people might just be, oh, it's just a photo of me in my bathers that I sent to a friend to get advice, does it look good or not? So the sorts of conversations we need to have are really about unpacking what people think is the common sense definition of sexting. A lot of these conversations we're having with young people about social media are the sorts of conversations we've always had. It's about communication, it's about feeling really anxious, and how do you manage that? It's about being really frustrated when somebody does something you don't particularly like. It's also about how you're feeling really excited. And all of this might be happening online in a conversation, but it's still the same feeling. So that division between online and offline doesn't really make sense there. So in some ways we can use a lot of the old sex ed material and just shift the context about what we're talking about. In some ways it can be really overwhelming thinking about social media, but it's also really exciting that we have this opportunity to talk to young people about their everyday lives in ways that are actually being more public. So we can talk to them about social media and apps and platforms, and they feel comfortable talking about these things. And in some ways we have a chance to actually get inside bedrooms and inside their little private worlds to actually ask them about what's happening for them and the sorts of changes that they might want to make in their lives so that they are happy and healthy, and that they go out into the future being positive about the relationships they have.